Hey, Sully, how are you this morning?
Oh, that didn't sound like it was 3 Diet Cokes. Maybe 1.5.
You start me off a little early this Saturday, so I got
I
to
told
rally
you,
the
Colby.
cause a little bit.
Anytime before 9, he's only 1 Diet Coke in. And
There you go. There you go.
so what's happening, man? You're on the Phillies train recently, and real quick, tell us how good's Reese Hoskins. What do you think of this kid?
Well, I mean, obviously, what he's doing is you kind of wonder is he could play for 20 more years and never be as hot as he was in his first 16 games.
Yeah.
So you might be seeing the hottest stretch of his life. But, it's been a dismal Philly season. But Hoskins hits his 9th home run last night and, kind of injects some energy into a dismal Philly season, gives some Philly fans some hope for the future. And just kind of fun to see, his home runs are no doubt about it. As soon as the ball, the sound of the ball off the bat, kind of the crowd, oohs and ahs, and that ball goes pretty far. So he looks, I would tell people this, he might not always hit 9 home runs in his first 16 games, but there are certain guys, certain athletes, he looks like he knows what he's doing. He looks like a professional hitter out there. So in what has been a, miserable season for Phillies fans, Reese Hoskins coming along at the end of summer to, give them some hope for the future.
Mike, before we get into some previews of some of the area teams, wanted to get your thoughts on a guy we got coming up after you, John Stone from Mainland. Obviously one of the best athletes in that school's history. Won a couple state championships in football, a couple state championships in track. What do you remember about his career in the late 90s?
Well, speed. That's what I remember, speed. Here's a guy who, I remember him running the 100-meter dash. I forget where it was, but I know it was the South Jersey Championship. I think he ran, a 10.3 or a 10.2 and change in the 100-meter dash. And I remember reporters from around the state, coming up to me the next week at the state championships and actually kind of asking me did the watches break? Was that an actual time? Was there wind at his back? And I kind of remember telling him, no, this guy is actually that fast. There's nothing, fake about his time and stuff like that. And, of course, he went on to win a state championship and the Meet of Champions 100-meter dash final. So I just remember that, that story kind of sticks out for me. And number 2, just a great football player, part of a great, mainland regional run there in the mid-'90s, a team that won, Group 3 titles, played big games against Ocean City. But, you say John Stone to me, and I think fast. I think speed.
I'll tell you what, I saw him out of practice Thursday. He stopped in for a couple days, I guess, to visit some family. He lives down in Georgia now, but he still looks like he could run a 10.6.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. And that's slowing down. That's slowing down. We all lose a step. He loses a step. He goes from a 10.3 to a 10.4, 10.5. So I'm sure it is. But that's the story that sticks out in my mind. A guy so fast that people around the state, didn't believe his time, and then he proved it by winning a state championship and the Meet of Champions of the 100-meter dash. And football-wise, just part of a tremendous era of mainland football. I think back-to-back South Jersey Group 3 championships, probably, one of the better teams in school history and one of the better teams in Cape Atlantic League history also.
Mike, wanted to dive into a couple of divisions here as we finish up our sort of on-air tour of the West Jersey Football League. And some of the divisions that you're somewhat familiar with is the Classic with Shalleck. Had a great year last year, and they beat out Clayton for that division title. Do you think they have a chance to win that again? I mean, the other schools are kind of in a rebuilding process when you talk about Gloucester Catholic, Gloucester City, and Wildwood.
Yeah, I would think so, but that division is always so hard to, sort of predict or sort of get a handle on, basically, because, they're filled with Group 1 schools, basically, and any one player or 2 players, it can change a whole team's fate. In
Right.
Group 5, 1 or 2 players, it might take you from 3 wins to 4 wins. When you got a good player in Group 1, you can go from 3 wins to 7 wins. So
Right.
That division is always so difficult to predict. But I think Shalleck, kind of the tradition that they have out there and the season they had this year last year would definitely be the team to watch in there. And then you have a lot of teams in that division. Pittman taking a step backwards, going back down to the JV level. Wildwood kind of struggling as they do with numbers so early in the season. So that division's kind of hard to get a handle on because, again, the size of the schools. You have teams literally just schools literally just putting their teams together right now, basically.
Right. Mike, switching over to the Group 5s and the Continental, that should just be an all-out slugfest this year. You're talking about St. Augustine Prep, Vineland, Millville, Atlantic City, and even EHT and Bridgeton, big schools that have some athletes that can, on any given night, have a guy have a best game of his life and really maybe score a huge upset, that kind of thing. So how do you see this division shaking out? And interesting to see Vineland up there in the conversation. They haven't been up until last year, but they're trying to change that culture down there, like we talked about earlier in the show, about getting that winning attitude going again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I look at that division, I say that to myself, that's got to be one of the best divisions, not only in South Jersey, that's got to be one of the best divisions in the state. You've got Millville, Vineland, and St. Augustine, all powerhouses, all are going to be top 10 teams in South Jersey. Millville and Vineland, are probably top 5 teams. St. Augustine not close behind. It's pretty funny this week. We're doing, for the Press of Atlantic City football preview section that comes out, I think the September 7th, we got Clayton Scott and Marcel Ramos of Millville together with Isaiah Pacheco and Liam Anderson of Vineland. We got them together at Vineland for a little photo shoot out there. It was kind of interesting to see the interaction between those 4 kids, very interesting. The Millville guys kind of flashing their championship rings. The Vineland guys reminding them that they beat Millville on Thanksgiving. So it's kind of interesting, great being out there with those 4 guys. But there's just dynamic playmakers all over the field with those 4 guys. You got Clayton Scott, a guy who ran for 1,700 yards last year for Millville, told me he wants 2,000 this year. And you got a guy on Millville, Carlton Lawrence, might be one of the more underrated players in South Jersey. That wide receiving defensive back has got FBS scholarship offers from West Virginia and Colorado, and that just speaks to his sort of elite talent. And then you got 2 Division I guys on Vineland and Pacheco, great running backs. And Liam Anderson, who kind of scares me. I mean, he's
an animal, that kid. I mean, I saw him last year against Prep, and I was like, I wouldn't want to be lined up against that kid.
Yeah, the photographers during the photo shoot were trying to get him to smile, and he kind of declined. And everybody said, "Okay, you don't want to smile? That's fine today." But he was,
yes, sir, no problem.
Right, exactly. Great football player. And then on top of that, you've got a St. Augustine team: Shamir Collins, True Robinson. Shamir Collins, defensive back and wide receiver. True Robinson, I think there's a guy at running back who's really, people know him as Kyle Dobbins' backup from last year. Had some good games, but I think there's a guy who's really going to emerge in South Jersey this year. And then you mentioned, you got those 3 teams, and then you go to an Atlantic City team, that's got Nazim Derry at quarterback, Flash Morgan at wide receiver, and, they're kind of not an afterthought, but they're the 4th best team in that division. Any other division, they'd be talked about among the favorites. So when you look at the Continental, that division is just loaded with talent, and the games in there on a weekly basis are just going to be tremendous to watch this season. And
there's a legit shot, Mike, that Vineland and Millville could end up playing Thanksgiving and then in the state championship game.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, that's the thing about Group 5 is you never know because, obviously, remember, look what happened to Vineland last year. They host Hal in that 5-4
right,
game.
Yeah.
Hal beats them, field goal at the last second. You look at Millville in the semifinals going up to Rancocas Valley, winning a game that, kind of changes on a possession here or there. That's the thing you never know in Group 5. Both of those teams are Group 5 contenders. And obviously it would be tremendous if they played on Thanksgiving and then played, 10 days later for a South Jersey Group 5 title. And both teams have the talent to do that. But you never know in Group 5. There's just so much talent and depth in that division that, it's tough to sort of predict anything once the playoffs start.
Mike, how would you like to be Egg Harbor Township, their first 3 games Millville, Lenape, and Vineland combined for 29 wins last year.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. And you look at the schedule of some of these teams, it's just unbelievable. I mean, you look at Atlantic City. Like I said, we talked about Atlantic City before. Atlantic City's got, Millville, Vineland, St. Augustine in the division. Then they've got Holy Spirit on Thanksgiving Day, crossover games against traditional powers like Washington Township and Williamstown. And then Harbor Township and Bridgeton are in the same boat. I mean, it's just, those teams are just playing an absolute brutal schedule this year. And they're going to be, whatever their records are, they're going to be better than their records are when the season's ended because of just how tough the schedule is. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, just looking at that, I mean, Garber Township, they got some good athletes, and as you said, Atlantic City as well, and they only combined for 5 wins last year. It shows you the talent in that Group 5, and like you said, it's just, I mean, you're going up against some really incredible athletes every week in Group 5.
Yeah, and you mentioned you look at the Harbor Township thing, and that's a perfect example. There's a team that's got talent. Would probably like some early season wins to sort of build some success. And you look at the first 3 games on their schedule, and it's like, what are we doing here? But but I think it's good for teams. It's every game in that division is going to be a big game. If you're a football player and you want to play against the best in South Jersey, you're going to do it in that division. So it's a challenge for all these teams, and it's one that I'm sure they're all embracing. I'm sure they're all going to show up. None of them are not going to show up on a Friday night this year. And you look at the games last year; a lot of them were close. A lot of them were close games. Even though teams might not have had the best record, a lot of times the games were decided by less than a touchdown here or a field goal there. So obviously, the Continental Division is going to be one to watch this fall coming up.
Good stuff, Mike. We're up against the break. Got to let you go, but we'll check in with you next week and see how St. Augustine fares in their season opener. They're one of those week 0 teams. They're playing up at Villanova against Malvern Prep, so that should be a great game up there.
Right, absolutely. I'll be up there, and let's give me the 15 extra minutes so I can have a little bit more energy next Saturday.
All right, we'll do, man. Thanks, Mike.
I'll see you later.
Appreciate it, bud.
Yeah.
That was Mike McGarry of the Press of Atlantic City. Always enjoy his comments on high school football and other sports. We'll make sure to get him at 9 o'clock or later next week, so we'll give him a chance to get a little more sleep in. So.